You hear that? You hear that? That's special. There's a lot of lions, tigers, and bears, but there ain't but one Razorback.
McFadden, say goodbye. Darren McFadden, 80 yards, touchdown.
Football, deep left field. Out of here. Madden for maybe the win. Oh, the follow is good. Arkansas in overtime. I think he just made SportsCenter again. Arkansas is in hog heaven. They won the first ever national championship.
All I want you to do tonight is play your best. Don't worry about making a mistake. You can make a mistake, that's fine, as long as you're going 100 miles an hour.
Is Sam Pittman's days at Arkansas numbered? Let's talk about that. Welcome into episode 52 of the Woo Pig Weekly Podcast, your weekly source for all things Arkansas Razorbacks. Episode 52 is brought to you by Homefield, home of premium vintage collegiate apparel. Go check them out today. You can use Variety Sports to receive 15% off your orders today with that promo code of Variety Sports in all caps. Great way to go get somebody a great Razorback Christmas gift. Go get them a new shirt, new jacket, whatever it may be. But you can use that promo code and receive 15% off your first order. So we'll just jump right in here. Not going to cover too much on stats because there's not much stats to cover. But we'll talk about, just Sam Pittman. I watched his press conference Monday after the horrendous showing we got Saturday. A lot of people are calling for his head, and I think we talked about it briefly before we started up here. We don't really know what to think as far as there's already been 2 firings in the SEC with Texas A&M firing Jimbo Fisher with that giant buyout, and then Mississippi State getting rid of Zach Arnett after just a partial season. A lot of people are thinking Pittman needs to go. He's ran his course here. Any specific thoughts there regarding Pittman and, his tenure at Arkansas, and does it continue?
Well, I can see both sides of the coin. This has been an abysmal year. I mean, realistically, I think the worst part about it is it wouldn't feel so bad if this was like year 1 or year 2, maybe even, because we've had a lot of close games, lost a lot of close ones. Obviously, this Auburn game was by far the worst loss we've had. Just as far as point differential goes. The Mississippi State game was a pretty bad loss, in my opinion, just due to it being a game that you should win. Plus, your defense played so well, and your offense physically could not do anything. But this is just a very, very bad loss. Kind of 2 weeks after that, which a little strange. I think that Florida game was a little bit of a fluke, but overall, I really can kind of see both sides of it. You shouldn't be having losses like this and regression quite to this extent. I don't think in year 4, this is all Pittman's recruits nowadays. Maybe a few carryovers because you got some guys that had some COVID years, things of that nature that maybe have been around a little longer than the normal kind of 4-year route. But anyway, I don't know. I can't help but think that Sam is a little bit lost right now. And I think one of the most glaring things is that Kendall Briles and Barry Odom kind of masked the fact that Sam doesn't have head coaching experience. We've talked about it in some weeks prior, just with some of the clock management, the game management scenarios that just have really been abysmal this year. We've had some issues in the past where we didn't agree with some play calls, here and there on like 4th and 1s or whatever with Kendall Briles. But that was kind of our biggest gripe. And now it's like, we don't even know when to call timeouts, so that there's been some big regression on a lot of different facets. And I just don't think you can have that in year 4 of your tenure. Granted, I'm not really calling for his head either. I really don't know what to put my finger on to say would fix the issue right now. Because I don't know if it's another coach. I really don't know. But I know that everybody's definitely frustrated, and I can definitely see kind of both sides of, if you go out and get another coach, you're going to have to shell out a lot of money for somebody that, just like A&M situation, it doesn't really matter how much money you shell out. Sometimes it may not always fit, and then you're really, really stuck in a bad situation. A&M's got a ton of money that they're able to bring in from their 12th man. I think I seen a thing about $100-something million that their fans and stuff have donated to kind of help with that buyout. I'm just not sure Arkansas could do that, but I don't know, man. It's definitely got me in a strange situation in my head where I love Sam. I think he's been great for us and really got us out of a bad situation and led us to a 9-win season. And we're just 2 years out from that. So it's I can see people making the argument, you don't fire a guy even though he's having a bad year. Look at what he's done in the past. He gets back to that. But then on the flip side, you hate to see this much regression.
Yeah, I think a lot of it that brings to my attention is, like you mentioned, now that Odom's gone, you see how much was he actually a part of the success in this team more than just on the defensive side of the ball. And maybe that's why you saw regression in the defensive side of the ball last season, is because he had to spend so much time, in a sense, maybe helping Pittman manage those head coaching duties. I mean, if you think about it, that makes a lot of sense with the defense that we saw 2 years ago look pretty decent under Odom, and then last year just looked terrible. I mean, you gotta give him some credit because he did have lack of depth issues with all the injuries we had, but still, defense was terrible. And so that just really makes you wonder. But I think for me, I'm like you, I can see both sides of it. But for me, the determining factor is, and I will stand by this, agree with me or not, if we're not going to go out and spend big money on a coach, there's no point in firing Sam Pittman, just because we'll be right back in this spot 4 years from now. Everybody say, let's fire him, whatever it may be. I think the approach is you give Sam one more year. Even Bielema got 5 years here. This is year 4. You give Sam a decent budget to go out and hire one heck of a offensive coordinator and see if that can help turn things around for this program next year. Like you said, I love Sam Pittman as, a person, for what he's done for this program, taking this job when really nobody else wanted to. We pursued other coaches before we really got to him, and they didn't want this job because they saw what big of a job it was. But Pittman loved the school so much and the state that he wanted to come and take on this opportunity. And, like we said, 2 seasons ago, 9-win season last year, got us to a bowl. We've been to 3 straight bowl games. That streak will end this year. But like you said, he had one bad year, and I don't think that justifies firing. Yeah, we should be in a better spot year 4. But, sometimes it's uncontrollables. And like you said, maybe his weaknesses are showing with that lack of head coaching experience, with kind of no crutch to lean on, with like a Barry Odom that had been a head coach before. You've got Kenny Guyton that was OC now, that was a wide receivers coach. You had Dan Enos that had been a head coach before, but, smaller school. Travis Williams on defense, he came from a defensive coordinator spot. And so I think when you look at it, it can go both ways. But from what I could pick up from his press conference on Monday, he doesn't seem to think he's leaving unless they're just kind of, that's the mentality until after Missouri, and then things may change. I don't know. I think if we wait till that long, we're already behind the 8 ball on this whole coaching search, since A&M and Mississippi State's already started. So I don't know what to think, what's going through Yurachek's mind, if he's kind of trying to rally the boosters and get the money for the buyout, or kind of, pushing against the boosters, saying, hey, I know the season didn't go well, but, let's give him another year to see if we can really turn things around.
Yeah, and I could make an argument either way. We can kind of sit there and beat that dead horse for a while, I guess. But if he does end up sticking around, because I've kind of heard rumblings one way or other. There was a lot of rumors going around on a Sunday evening, that it was a done deal that he was fired, and we were pursuing Gus Malzahn and blah 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 blah. And then that kind of all fizzled out, and then Monday evening, it was more so along the complete opposite of that. Is, hey, he's not going anywhere. It's a done deal. He's not going anywhere. I still think the jury's out on that. And to your point, they may be kind of waiting till the end of the year. I don't really know why they would do that at this point. I think his record is to the point now that even if he does win these last 2 games, he's still underneath the 500 mark, where his buyout is less. It's at that prorated rate or whatever. So to your point, if you were going to go ahead and get rid of him, you would want to do it, more sooner rather than later, and go ahead and kind of jump in that search. I'm just not so sure, but what maybe there was some communications to Gus Malzahn potentially. I've got mixed feelings on that guy myself, but or maybe some other coaches out there. I mean, I've heard some Coach Elko at Duke, and a couple other names that maybe they reached out to and didn't get a lot of interest back on, and then maybe kind of flip their script and like, oh, just kidding, y'all, we're keeping Salmon here. But I don't really know. We can sit here and kind of play the conjecture game. Nobody really knows exactly what's going on, behind closed doors. All I know is that as hard of a year as it's been, I'm going to keep rooting for them as hard as I can. I hope we win these next 2 games. It'd be kind of fun to upset Missouri. Obviously, the Florida international game, I'm just not so sure that one's even winnable at this point. I just don't know anymore, man. This whole season went way different than I ever thought it was going to. It's unfortunate that, we had a pretty good game against Florida and then turned right back around and it seemed like all the gas we had kind of in the tank leaked back out on the way home or something, so it's been a strange year for sure.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say a lot of people bought into the hype of this year, especially, the hype of you got KJ back, you've got Rocket back. This was supposed to be a decent offensive line, improved defense. We even had our projections of an 8-9 win season. And I mean, you can project all you want until you see the product on the field against another opponent. That's what's going to happen. And, a side note, like you mentioned, I really don't understand all the fascination people have with Gus Malzahn. He's turned Arkansas down twice already and really used us to just get a pay raise at Auburn. I know he's a home state guy. That's the only thing that I got that could maybe be why everybody wants him. He consistently had 8-win seasons at Auburn, but I mean, I don't know how you can expect him to come in and have much more luck than Pittman did here at Arkansas. Not in a bad way, but just because you're not going to out-recruit a lot of these schools like your Alabamas, your Georgias, your A&Ms that have a lot of money to say, hey, come play for Arkansas just because, you'll get playing time. People in this day and age with NIL, people want to go where they're going to get paid. And unless Arkansas steps up their efforts to start, in a sense, offering guys more money, then those top recruits aren't going to come here. So to ask a guy to come in here and consistently win 8-9 games, I think you're asking a little bit much. Maybe 7 to 8 games I could see realistically, and maybe a 9-10 every few years or so. But to come in and win consistently like that, Arkansas, a lot's going to have to change here, and that's going to have to start with the university and the athletics department ready to spend a lot of money in football like we do in baseball, basketball, track, all those sports that get a ton of money and attention. That's going to have to be the same mentality for football, and it just hasn't been there. You look at kind of the market for what we've paid the previous 2 coaches. We're not going out there and offering big money like, some of these other coaches are getting paid. So I think it all boils down to if we're not ready to ante up and pay out some money, then you're what we've got is about what you can expect in a sense.
Yeah, I think I agree with that take to a sense. Obviously, I know Sam's the highest paid coach, up there. But if you compare it to other, football programs around the SEC, yeah, we are kind of on the lower end of that. So I definitely agree with you in the fact that we could up our game from a spending standpoint. I don't know if it would result with better years or not. I mean, like every time somebody says you're going to have to go out and spend a lot of money on a big name coach, I just always think about Jimbo Fisher at A&M as the prime example of why that's not always a guaranteed good thing. I mean, that is by far the biggest buyout in college football history by like $50 million, which is just crazy. But anyway, I still agree with you in the fact that I think there's going to have to be some type of, I don't know if a culture change is really the right word for it, but almost just like a mentality change on the way we think as Arkansas fans and the whole university and the program as a unit, the way that they think about going out and getting players, utilizing the NIL to their advantage to get players. I think everybody's still kind of got that good old boy mentality. We don't really want those guys that just want to come for money. We want the guys that want to be Razorbacks. Yeah, maybe 30 years ago you could kind of do that. I'm just not so sure that in this day and age that you're ever going to have SEC success with that type of mindset, that old school mindset like that. And I think some things are really going to have to change If we're ever going to get kind of over that 6-6 hump, where that's really all we can ever expect, win our 4 non-conferences and maybe sneak a couple of conference wins out against the bottom dwellers of the SEC like we are, and go, if we make a bowl game, that's a successful year for us. And at this rate, I just kind of think that that's where we're at, unless some major things change. And to your point, you might get that 8-9 win year every 5-10 years or something, but I don't think you're ever going to get much more than that.
Yeah, it's true. So we'll just run through a quick stats here. Not a lot to cover. As we said, Arkansas lost to Auburn 48-10. It seems like Seth said, they seem to have our number these past few years at Arkansas and beating us by a large margin. When you look at this game's performances, KJ did not have his best game by any means. He only threw the ball 16 times, completed 10 of those for 62.5% completion rate, 116 yards. He carried the ball 15 times for 50 yards. You saw Criswell come in the game in the middle third quarter, 2 of 4 passing for 50% for 19 yards, and he threw a touchdown. So it was a one bright spot of the game. You saw Criswell come in and throw a very nice pass to Tesla in the end zone for a touchdown late in that game. At that point, the game was over. But to see, him come in and seize the opportunity he was given, it's nice to know that the future at that position, whether KJ decides to come back or he decides to leave, I think we were in safe hands. And then he had 6 carries for 64 yards. He broke off a very nice run late in the game too, where, he picked up a large chunk there and, shows he has some speed and he can run it as well. Jump over rushing stats, basically non-existent for this game. Our offensive line struggled again. It's like the same song, different tune each week. I mean, until you do something different with this offensive line, I think you're not going to see any results. I think we've said it before. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. At this point, what does it hurt to play some of these younger guys that you recruited in, freshmen, guys that aren't starting? I don't think you could see any worse play at this point. Rocket had 8 carries for 0 yards. He had 1 reception for 3 yards. AJ Green came in 2 carries, 3 yards. And DeBinion had 1 carry for 3 yards. So non-existent running game, barely any passing game. You can't expect to contend with an SEC team with those type of numbers. On the receiving end, you had Isaiah Centennial, 1 reception for 35 yards. He led all receivers in reception yards. You had Armstrong, 2 receptions for 34 yards. Tesla, 3 receptions for 32 and that touchdown. Tight end Nathan Bax had 2 receptions for 15 yards. So basically a non-existent offense. And, I mean, there's really nothing else to say.
Yeah, we'll flip over to it in a minute on some of the defensive stats. But with the offense performing so bad, I mean, I can't tell you how many times we punted. A dozen, maybe more. I don't really know. It was crazy. I think our first 4 possessions of the game were 3 and outs. Every single one of them. It was just, we just couldn't get anything going. And so it kind of translated into our defense. They weren't really able to perform like they have been and keep us in the game at all. I mean, it was just, I don't know. And like you said, Auburn's got our number for some reason. I don't really understand exactly what that is, but they ran the ball all over us, threw the ball all over us. I mean, it just was pretty ugly.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the defense, they didn't perform as well as they have been all season. But also part of their not fantastic performance is you got to think how much they were on the field. When your offense comes out, goes 3 and out and burns 30 seconds off the clock, your defense does not get much time to rest and they're back on the field again. So I think you got to look at that when you're kind of, in a sense, evaluating this defense and how they perform this game.
It's not their fault at all. We lost this the way we did. They were out there for 50 minutes of the game. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah. And so you look at your top players on defense this week. You had Al Walcott, 8 total tackles, 6 solo, half a tackle for loss. Jaheim Thomas, 8 tackles, 3 solo. Chris Paul Jr., 8 tackles, 2 solo. And the one bright spot of that defense, Dwight McGlothern comes back in and, he got a lot more playing time last week, kind of got the call this week, got an interception that he returned for 42 yards that we managed to get 3 points off of, where Cam Little hit a 39-yard field goal. So he returned that interception for 42 yards, and offense managed to gain 2 yards. And out comes Cam Little, the star of the season in a sense. He's led the team in scoring this season, so he'll be back another year, hopefully.
He's the one person that is he's had the good fortune of the fact that we've had a hard time getting in the end zone, because it has made him look quite good, because he's had a lot of field goal opportunities and he's made most of them, and a lot of them from deep. And that's definitely going to earn him a paycheck on Sundays in the near future. So I'm very, very happy for Cam. He's definitely a fan favorite for sure. And so to see him get a lot of the recognition that he's getting this year, especially considering that our team is just bad, that's at least a bright spot. You can be happy for one of the players, especially for, you know what I mean?
Hey, and you look at it, we only had 4 penalties this week for 35 yards. So that's an improvement, right? So
can't get a lot of false starts if you're not out there on many offensive plays.
that's true. So we'll wrap up football here and SEC Week 11 results. Alabama beats Kentucky 49-21. South Carolina beats Vanderbilt 47-6. Missouri beats Tennessee 36-7. Georgia beats Ole Miss 52-17. LSU beats Florida 52-35. Texas A&M beats Mississippi State 51-10. And the game of both coaches got fired bowl. So, all but certain now after this week, Bama and Georgia kind of locks in their spots for the SEC championship game in Atlanta. So unless crazy things happen in these next 2 weeks of the season, that's who you're going to see in the SEC championship game. So that'll be what to expect. And we'll take a quick break here and we'll be back with some fantastic Arkansas basketball news.
You know what I like? I like to be comfortable. I also love representing my favorite sports teams. And in the Clutch, I am able to have the best of both worlds. In the Clutch Apparel is your one-stop shop for all things sports. They have officially licensed gear from all your favorite teams and players from the NHL, MLB, NFL, and more. They have sports classic tees from yesteryear and beyond. Check out their full website in the link down below. When you enter the promo code Variety Sports, you get 10% off everything site-wide. Feel comfortable with your sports apparel and go over to their website now at intheclutch.com. And don't forget to use our code Variety Sports to get 10% off.
All right, we are back and we'll talk about sport that has more positive news with Arkansas basketball, where Arkansas season has kicked off, and we got that started off 1-0, beating Alcorn State last week. And on Friday, we went back to the hardwood where Arkansas took on Gardner-Webb and won this game 86-68, where Arkansas got out to a slow start in this game in that first half, but kind of did their thing in the second half. Must probably had some words for them in the locker room, but when you look at the stats for this game, you had Khalif Battle leading scorer once again off the bench with 21 points. You had Tremont Mark with 14 and L. Ellis with 13. Leading rebounders in this game were Trevor Brazile with 7, followed by L. Ellis with 6, and Mekhi Mitchell and Devo Davis both with 5. Another good shooting night for this team, where they shot 50% from the field, going 30 of 60. 38.9% from three-point range, going 7 of 18, and 61.3% from the free throw line, where they hit 19 of 31. Would like to see that number a little bit higher, but I will take the shooting higher percentages on that field goal and three-point percentage. So anything stand out from this game to you, Seth?
Yeah, nothing too crazy. You can tell it's early season. You're having some guys that are kind of hitting their stride early, which is good to see. Caleb Battle is balling out. Honestly, he's a walking bucket out there. And then you've got a lot of other guys that are kind of finding their rhythm, finding their groove, but there's still some growing pains, and you can see it kind of. We'll have an offensive flurry where they look like they have been playing together for 10 years, and then your next couple of minutes we go scoreless for a 3 or 4 minute stretch, just having some careless turnovers, some funky offensive bad rotations, set weird screens, just strange poor play. But that's stuff that I think they're getting worked out. They're going to get those kinks worked out midway through the season, typical Muss fashion. I think this game is definitely another good example of that. There's some things to fix. The biggest thing, and we'll talk about it after the Old Dominion recap too, but we've got to get to work on our free throw percentage. That's the biggest glaring problem in our offense, I guess I should say. right now. We're doing a really good job kind of shooting the ball from the field and from the 3-point line. It's just from the free throw line that we're really struggling. I think as a team, the whole team is struggling from the line. Even guys that are historically good shooters, Battle, for example, I think he was over an 80% shooter last year. Hasn't really been shooting the free throws that well this year. So that's something that we're going to be needing to get kind of ratcheted up and tuned up a little bit before we get into conference play, or that's going to really hurt you. You can win or lose a lot of games at the free throw line.
Yeah, I think, like you said, this team is finding itself. And I think comparative to the previous 2 years, this team is almost a flip side of that, where you're finding your offense really early in the game. And this team is working on getting its kind of defensive rotations and its defensive intensity up to par to what it normally is for a must-style team. And so, and like I said, we'll hit some of that defensive evaluation in this Old Dominion recap. But I think that's what you're seeing this year. And so we'll jump over to Arkansas women's basketball, where that same day at 10:30 that morning, they took on Murray State, where they got the win 82-79 to remain undefeated on the year. The leading scorer for the Razorbacks was once again freshman Talia Scott, where she dropped 25 points in this game. You had Michaela Daniels with 15 and Samara Spencer with 11. Leading rebounder was Sailor Poffenbarger with 12, followed by Miriam Dowda with 8 and Michaela Daniels with 6. Arkansas women shot better in this game, where they shot 44% from the field, going 30 of 68. Much better percentage from the 3-point line, where they went 28%, 7 of 25, and 75% from the free throw line. So knocking down those free throws, going 15 of 20. So, I mean, I think it's safe to say Arkansas's got a star on their hands with this freshman point guard that they have that has came in and kind of set Arkansas women's basketball on fire.
Yeah, no doubt. She's been pretty awesome so far, and definitely a bright spot. This team's actually really fun to watch. They've got some similarities to the men's team in the fact that they can go on some flurries on offense and then circle it right back around with a few minutes of just brick shots and careless turnovers, things of that nature. It seems like they're always on the cusp of putting a team away, and then they kind of flub it a little bit and then let that team come back in. Like this game right here, I watched the whole thing, and there was a couple of moments where they were up by double digits, just kind of let them stay around and kind of had to squeak out a close win there at the end of it. But there is some learning that can happen from that, and you understand how to win close games. And later on, when the competition gets a little bit more tough, you can, clean up those turnovers and things of that nature. You still know how to win the close game because you've done it already. So kind of two sides of that coin there. But I think this women's basketball team, they're definitely growing, and they have a couple of really good players to build around, and they're going to be a fun team to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like you said, we might see a more offensive-based team this year, where last year this team was decent defensively and kind of struggled to score at times, where, clearly these first two games you're going to have Talia Scott that's going to come in and put up buckets for you, game in and game out. When you average 20 plus, I know it's 2 games in, but that's impressive to see a freshman come out and do that back-to-back games. For her to have one game where, she makes her debut and, nobody really knows film on her and whatnot, but to see her come do that 2 games in a row, I think that's kind of what you're going to start expecting. Yeah, that'll probably drop down a little bit when you hit conference play, but I think up until then, you're going to see her, just come out and have pretty decent games. And, it shows just how talented she is. So we'll hit up Arkansas women's basketball as they're playing right now. We'll give you a score update here in just a minute. But we'll cover Arkansas men's basketball, where yesterday they took on Old Dominion on November 13th, where they got this win 86-77, a little bit closer game than I kind of expected or anticipated with this game. Your leading scorer with this game was Elle Ellis with 17 points, Devo Davis with 16 points, and Makai Mitchell with 15 points. Your leading rebounder was Makai Mitchell with 10 rebounds, followed by Tremont Mark with 6 and Devo Davis with 5. To me, in this game, I think it kind of just showcases that night in and night out, you're going to have different guys that are going to step up, lead the team in scoring. And I think your scoring is going to be consistently more spread out across the board, instead of one guy having 30 points, one guy having 25 points. I think you're going to see more guys where you have like this spread we see here, 17, 16, 15. I think that's what's going to really help this team down the stretch. And, you can't help but praise Mekhi Mitchell in this game, where he came out there and just had a game. One of the best, I think I've seen since he's been in Arkansas. He had a double-double with 15 points, 10 rebounds. And I saw it accurately described. Somebody said, what Mekhi Mitchell lacks in talent, he makes up for in that heart and hustle. And sure enough, he came out and played a great game when kind of other guys might have been struggling. And I think that's what you can expect with this Arkansas team. They had another great shooting night where they shot 50.8% from the field, going 30 of 59, 42.1% from 3, 8 of 19, and 62.1% from the free throw line, 18 of 29. So again, we just mentioned they need to work on that, because later on down the stretch, we don't want this causing us to lose games. That's an additional 11 points that, you hit maybe 9 more of these. You go from an 86-77 score to a 95-77 score. So it's just one of those things that I think it's going to take time to develop, and hopefully they get that figured out before conference play.
Yeah, no doubt. The biggest thing is they are getting to the line quite a bit, and that's what you want out of how physical our team plays, that they're going in, getting the calls. They just got to hit a few more of them. Fortunately, it didn't cost us a win or anything here, and you got to give Old Dominion credit. They hung around in this game. They played good defense, and they really shot the lights out, which was, I think, a bit of a shocker for a lot of people that had looked at some of the stats coming into this. They weren't a very good three-point shooting team, but boy, they sure were against us. I think they hit 12 threes. So that kept them in the game, is just the fact that they got extremely hot from deep, kind of right to start the second half. And they just kind of bounced right back into it because of that. But the Hogs were able to weather the storm and actually played a pretty good game. To your point, Mekhi Mitchell was extremely efficient. Had a really good game, kind of quietly, honestly. The one thing that I think we haven't talked about it just a ton yet, but the team so far, and it's spread across a couple different guys, but especially Mitchell, Brazil, a few others, it's been a block party all 3 games so far. I think we have 25 blocks on the season. 3 games into it, we're averaging like 8.3 blocks a game and some change, which is second behind Auburn only in the SEC so far, and Auburn's only played 2 games. So you give give them a number of the game. If they don't have 8.5 blocks, that average will go down a little bit, and I think we'll be a little bit higher than they are. And that's definitely something you got to commend these guys on. They're affecting shots, they're altering shots, they're blocking shots. Even if they don't get the block, they're making a lot of these teams have to really work for it around the rim. And that's something that's almost an intangible that you can't always measure. And so our defense on that side of things has looked really, really good this year. And it's definitely helped us win some of these games where, like Old Dominion, for example, has shot the lights out from deep, but they've struggled, to kind of score inside because of our length. And I think you're going to be able to see that kind of all year long. We're an extremely long team. All these guys have 8-foot wingspans, according to Manny Watkins, So anyways, that's one thing that I think I'm going to be excited to kind of keep track of a little bit more this year, is just how many blocks this team can tally, because we are long everywhere.
Yeah, that's true. And it's like you said, a key point. It's weird that a lot of these teams come into Bud Walton and just have a career shooting night. I don't know what it is about teams coming in to play Arkansas and just shooting lights out. They shot 11 of 24 for 45% from the three-point line. Usually Arkansas, if you look back at last year, decent guarding the 3. So I wouldn't be surprised. I was talking last night, I wouldn't be surprised, since we've got our trip to the Bahamas coming up next week. We see some weighted vest and bricks in the hands before we head out, to just let these guys know, hey, we've got to guard this 3-point line, because, if you take away half those, this game's a lot of different game, and, it's not even near as close.
Yeah, there's 2 facets to me that stick out as to why this game was as close as it was, because we really dominated them this game. It just didn't quite show up in the scoreboard like it should have, because A, we missed more free throws than we should have, and that killed us. And then B, they hit a lot of shots. Seriously, like there was a stretch there. It seemed like everything they were throwing up was going in. I felt like we were even playing good defense on a lot of the shots, and they were just hitting everything. So definitely nice to be able to weather that storm. But come SEC time, when the talent disparity is not quite so big, that can cost you a game right there if you have those kind of situations. So definitely some things to clean up, but so far it's been a fun year.
Yeah, and can't wait to get for it. Arkansas will be back in action this Friday as they take on UNC Greensboro. before we head to the Bahamas to take on Stanford in the battle for Atlantis. Exciting tournament time. And as we get to feast week, as they call it, I have high expectations as Arkansas team as they go down to this tournament. It's a very winnable tournament for Arkansas with some of the opponents that they have in that they could see. I like our chances against most of them, and it's going to be interesting to see how we go down, contend with Stanford, and then move on and progress to that tournament. So, quick little update for Arkansas women's basketball. They're taking on UALR tonight, and with 8 minutes and 43 seconds left in the third quarter, they are up 39-14. So, got a decent lead in this game. Like we said, hopefully they can keep that up. Your leading scorers for Arkansas right now, you've got Miriam Dowda with 12 points and followed up by Talia Scott with 9. So, not like we said, not as big of a performance. You can't expect that week, day in, day out. So, we'll see what she finishes with. But Arkansas's got that lead right now, so hopefully they can keep that lead and, have a big win against an in-state school tonight. We'll jump over to Arkansas track and field, where Arkansas's Chris Bucknam was named SEC Men's Cross Country Men's Coach of the Year. So great honor for him. Another thing before I forget, Arkansas, if you're talking about coaching, a lone bright spot, Arkansas's defensive coordinator Travis Williams was named a finalist for the Broyles Award, which goes out to the best assistant coach in the country. So to see him nominated in such a bad season, you can see what he's done with this defense. We were ranked 124th in total defense last year, and we're ranked currently 50th this year. So, that's a tremendous improvement by him in just one season. So I think you've got the right hire on the defensive side of the ball. And if we can just kind of hit that same type of gold in a sense with the offensive side, I think you could see that's where things turn around, but don't want to get back on the football tangent. So we'll jump over to here and let Seth cover the other football, as Arkansas soccer is in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, so Arkansas got the number 2 seed, which I think tied our highest seeding that we've ever gotten in the NCAA tournament for soccer. So that was a good draw. Took on Grambling State in the first round on the 10th and won this match 5-0. So a good matchup for Arkansas. Scoring didn't start until the second half, though. It was a little bit of a slow start, which is a little bit uncharacteristic for us, but it came fast and furious, where Bellafield got things started for Arkansas in the 51st minute off of a ball from Morgan White. Ava Tankersley followed that up with a goal off of a cross from Ellie Potogil. And then Arkansas's next goal came in the 60th minute off of an indirect free kick where Tankersley took the touch, sending it over Bellafield for the goal. In the 70th minute, Tankersley took it past Grambling defender to send it to Bellafield, who fired the ball past the Tiger goalkeeper for the third goal of the match. And then Sophia Aragon finished things off with a final goal that came in the final 6 minutes of the match, and her 6th of the season. Bellafield became the first Razorback to score 3 goals and a half since 2001, so got the hat trick there, which is pretty cool. And then we'll play the number 7 seed Pittsburgh on this coming Friday, November 17th at 6:30 p.m. in the second round. So got off to a pretty good start in the first round. Can't really ask for a whole lot more than a 5-0 win. So kind of curious to see how we keep this thing rolling. It's been a pretty solid year so far. I think the expectations are high to make a deep run.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you look at the talent that, Kobe Hill's got on this team. It's kind of similar, like we said, with basketball. They're very deep. You have different people scoring goals throughout this team. Just look at Bellafield, a freshman that came in. She had 2 goals all season and then broke out this game in the best type of environment to break out, the NCAA tournament, and have 3 in one game, like Seth said, that hat trick. So to see what Colby Hill does with these players that he gets and can develop the talent, I think you can't ask for much more from a coach whenever you can come in and have this kind of development. And I'm excited to see how far I think we can make a deep run in this tournament. Like we said, we'll come out and play the 7 seed Pittsburgh Friday. So, if you're in town, you don't have anything to do, you're not going to a basketball game, go out, check out this Arkansas soccer team. It's an exciting environment, a fun team to watch. A lot of going on this weekend, but, wish them luck as they, head out to the second round of the tournament and, hopefully get that win over Pittsburgh. We'll jump over to Arkansas volleyball, where they got the win on the road at Alabama, 3-0. And Arkansas's next match will come this Wednesday, November 15th at 7 p.m. versus Ole Miss back at home. And so now we'll jump over to our Arkansas FIU preview. This game's going to be Saturday the 18th at 6:30, so a night game. Wish I could be more excited about a night game, but with just like we said earlier, how the seasons went, it's hard to really get excited. I'll be there. I'll show up, and I'm going to support these guys, but, man, it's tough with a season like this. And I'm surprised that Arkansas starts out as a 29.5-point favorite. They're really expecting us to put up a lot of points in this game with us over under 50.5. So unless we just flip a switch, and I don't know, I don't see this happening. I see this being a low-scoring affair where unless we just out-talent them, then I don't know where those expected 50 points are going to come from. So,
man, I completely agree with you on that. I think this could end up being, kind of like a 28-14, 21-7 kind of feeling game. I'm really not sure, and I'm not really sure who's going to be on the winning side of it. I hate to say that. I really do think we do match up better than they do against us, but I've seen crazier things in the past, and I'm gonna be real. I don't think we have a whole lot of fire left in our belly as far as the team goes. I mean, I feel horrible for the defense. They've played extremely hard all year long, kept us in games that they shouldn't have had to keep us in, frankly. And I think you finally started to see them kind of start to run out of gas, this late in the season. That Auburn, they couldn't get any stops against Auburn. We'd hold them down to a 3rd and long, and they'd pick it up. And you can just really start to kind of tell that we're running out of gas in the tank, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We've been out of gas in the tank on the offensive side of the ball. But anyways, maybe we can kind of right the ship a little bit and maybe build some momentum, find a few things that work again, kind of like we did in the Florida game to propel us against Missouri. And who knows, maybe squeak one out against Missouri and mess up their nice preseason. But it is, to your point, it is hard to get excited about a game when, at this point, nothing really feels like it matters as far as you're not fighting for bowl eligibility or things of that nature. So I'm curious to see, who we play. Has there already been conversations behind the scenes on, is KJ coming back or not? And if not, do you just go ahead and decide to say, heck with it, let's play Criswell in the second half, the whole half or something? I don't know. I'm really not sure exactly how that's all going to shake out. I'm curious to kind of see how that does pan out. I think we could see a couple extra guys out there more than normal. And to your point, I think it would be prudent to play a few more offensive linemen, some of the freshmen, especially if they're not running the risk of losing a red shirt or something like that. Now that you're down to kind of the last 2 games, they didn't play much in the early year. You could play a few of them and still keep their red shirt. So see what you got, see what you can build on, try to let those guys know, hey, we're needing you next year. Come back. We're going to try to fix a few things and fix a few holes and have a good year next year. So, you're just as much right now as you're recruiting, those high school players and looking at the transfer portal. I think there is going to have to be some form of effort to keep a few guys on the team that you're potentially at risk of losing in the transfer portal with the way our season's gone. And I think some of the frustrations that are happening in the locker room, that's going to be half the battle, I think, for us in the offseason and in these last couple of games is how do you keep from losing some of the players that you're going to need to come back next year too?
Yeah, that's true. I do think you see, like you said, some play by Criswell. In Monday's press conference, Pittman did come out and say he's earned the right to see the field with what he's done in practice. I mean, it's hard to argue the guy's thrown 2 touchdown passes in his limited playing time this season. And you got to wonder, what does that boil out to whenever you see him for a whole half more than just garbage time of a game? It'll be interesting to see. But when you look at FIU coming to town, their quarterback players to watch for them, their quarterback, Keon Jenkins, he's a freshman, 5'11", 190, 146 of 247, so 59% completion rate. So not the best, accurate guy that we faced, which could bode to this defense's favor as we've been able to force turnovers. That's the one bright spot on this team is that this defense has been aggressive and can force turnovers. He's thrown for 1,900 yards, 6 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So is turnover prone in a sense. He has 101 carries for 49 yards and 5 touchdowns. So kind of seems like a guy that's going to get some touches at the goal line and rush for some touchdowns. So, that'll be key for our defense is to watch that. We got sliced and diced by Auburn and Peyton Thorne last week with a running quarterback. So, we're going to really have to shore up that. Their running back, Shamari Lawrence, 6 foot, 200 pounds, has 112 carries on the season for 522 yards and 4 touchdowns, 7 receptions for 44 yards. And then their top receiver, Chris Mitchell, 6'1", 175, has 50 total receptions on the season for 845 yards and 6 touchdowns. So clearly their go-to guy. Again, this is a team where we should, as from a standpoint of talent level, be above and beyond this team with just we're an SEC school. Our guys should just be better athletes and more talented than these guys. But like we've said, at this point in the season, I don't know what to think anymore. Sure, they may be, but do you see that product? Do they display that on the field? Guys that you got to look at for Arkansas, Patrick Kudus is iffy this week as he had that high ankle sprain in the Florida game. Pittman said he was in a boot last week, and they were going to test it out this week, and not a lot, but we're going to see how his ankle's doing. Jalen Braxton went out of the game last week with a shoulder sprain, so they're going to take it easy. He's not going to have any contact this week, and hopefully he'll be ready for the game. I believe there's one more, but I can't remember who it is. But for the most part, we should be fairly healthy. And, expectations or improvements for this game, it's plain and simple. Arkansas's got to score points. If we can't do that, it's going to be hard to win any game. I hate to say I could almost see this being a Mississippi State type game. If we can't score, do we only kick field goals? Do they get a late touchdown or something that kind of propels them on top? I just honestly don't know what to expect out of this game.
I don't either. You've seen some severe inconsistency the last few weeks out of us, with the Mississippi State game, only scoring a field goal and losing, flipping it right back around against Florida and kind of seemed like we might have found a little something, kind of similar to the end of that Alabama game. I thought that maybe we had found something to kind of propel us, and then it just didn't hold on, didn't stick, I guess I should say. And then, really that Auburn game was just bad on all facets, and I don't think you could ask the defense to hold up against that Auburn rushing attack. They were able to run the ball all over us, especially out of the quarterback position, and they threw the ball well enough to make it hard for us to cover both, if that makes sense. And when they're out there for that long, it's tough anyways. So I just don't really even know what to say other than kind of shrug and just hope that we come out and play well. But I have very, very strange expectations for this game. I don't know. And at the end of the day, if this is hard to say as a Hog fan, but if you're on the train of trying to get rid of Pittman or something, you're going to have a lot of Hog fans rooting for us to lose this game, which that sounds crazy, but really, I've seen a lot of people out there that are hoping we lose the next 2 games. Just to try to put that much more pressure on Hunter Yurachek to make a change. Some people are wanting that. I don't really think I want that, but I don't know, man. It's definitely a weird spot to be in. It feels like we're almost back to Chad Morris 2.0. I don't think it's quite to that level or anything, obviously, but you have another year like this next year. You're right back to Chad Morris level of the pits of despair. You know what I mean? So you can't have years like this and expect to build any type of consistent football program. That's what we were hoping for. That's really what kind of Sam had talked about these last few years is building a football team that the state can be proud of. Not necessarily a championship winning team year in and year out, but a team that you can be proud of. That you're going over 500 year in and year out. Even if you're just going 500 to get to a bowl game and have a shot at winning that, to get that 7th win, kind of like we did last year. It wasn't the best year ever. I think some people thought it was a disappointment, but kind of to what we've spoken about earlier, that's a realistic expectation for Arkansas, kind of year in and year out, and then have those, years every 2, 3, 4 years where you win 8, 9 games, kind of like we did 2 years back. So if we can kind of get back to that, I think that is the team you can be proud of. and then maybe sprinkle in every 10-year team or something like that, where you get somebody to stay in the state, that's kind of like a Ryan Mallett type player or Tyler Wilson type player, somebody that comes to mind that's coming up that could be that type of player is a guy like Kane Archer out of Greenwood, who's got offers from everywhere. He's that level of a quarterback that's kind of a football freak in the high school world. And
he's almost what you would call a program changing type of player.
Really, if you're able to get one of those guys, every 10, 12 years or so to stay at home, keep those big ones like that are easy to lose to the bigger schools with the money and the things of that nature, that's where you can kind of have a year or two where you get to 10 wins or something like a Petrino era type, back when Ryan Mallett was there. So it hurts to not have a team that you're proud of is really kind of what it boils down to, especially with that kind of being the mantra that Sam was wanting us to get to. And it just hasn't really happened this year like I think a lot of people expected, for us to have at least a good year, maybe not just a crazy great. I saw people predicting 10 wins. I thought that was kind of the ceiling and a stretch. But boy, we're not even close, I was thinking probably along the lines of 8, and I was going to be extremely happy if we got to 8. But man, it's just, I don't know. I don't even really know what else to say on it other than it's tough to be proud, and it's tough to think that you're going to be able to flip it around and be able to continue building kind of a successful program where you do get to have that type of consistent success at the degree that we, should be expecting year in and year out. When you have this type of play, you lose recruits because of it. You've already seen it, and that's a horrible feeling.
Yeah. It's like you said, this could be one of those games where if Pittman loses it, it's hard to defend him to that point when a team, it should be your cupcake game that you should win. And then, like you said, if we lose this game and for some reason he didn't get fired then, and we come out and just get hammered by Missouri, it makes it harder to defend, saying give him another year, let him go out and hire somebody, because at that point, you've won 3 games all season. And with this much talent that's on this team, yeah, plus that's not doing you any favors. Like we said, Kane Archer, he could easily come here, but with a program, like if we have another year like this year, why is he going to want to come here when he could go to one of these top prestigious schools and make a lot of money and potentially have a fantastic career? Now, if Arkansas can get things back on track, the potential is there that he comes in and, he's talented enough that he comes in and starts as a freshman. I could see that. And, he would know that. When you're recruiting him, I'm telling him, if looking at my roster and if depending on his next few seasons go, hey, you come here, I'm going to tell you you're most likely going to start day one. So it'll be interesting.
And I'm going to go get some transfer wide receivers that you want. You tell me who you want to throw to, and I'll go get them, kind of thing.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting to see how we round out this season. I hope we can come out and maybe look like the team we saw against Florida this weekend, put up some points, kind of beat this team like we should, and maybe somehow and give Missouri a run for their money. They looked pretty dang salty against Tennessee the other day, so that unless we kind of really embrace the rivalry, if you will, that's trying to be forced upon us, then I think this could be your last chance for a win on the season, and then we'll round out the season with 4 wins.
Yeah, that's kind of my expectation too. It sucks to feel that way, but it is what it is. So, hey man, at least we got basketball to look forward to.
Right.
Jumping on the must bus. Let's go.
Yeah. So upcoming events for the rest of this weekend. It's going to be a busy weekend here in Fayetteville with a lot going on. Arkansas swimming, diving will be at the Tennessee Invite from the 15th to the 17th. You have Arkansas volleyball taking on Ole Miss at 6:30 on the 15th. Arkansas women's basketball will travel to Arkansas State and play at 7 p.m. on the 17th. Your men's basketball will be playing back at home against UNC Greensboro at 7 p.m. on the 17th. You've got Arkansas soccer versus Pitt at 6:30 on November 17th. So that big NCAA matchup. So you don't got tickets to the basketball game, go get some tickets for the soccer game. I believe they're like $8 a piece for a fantastic showing that you can expect a lot of fireworks from this team. You got Arkansas playing FIU. We just previewed that for you at 6:30 on the 18th. You have volleyball versus Florida on the 19th at 3 p.m. Just a heads up, on Sunday, Arkansas soccer will play on Sunday if they win on Saturday. So could be playing 2 days in a row there. So keep an eye out for that. And then next week, Arkansas women's basketball will be taking on UCA at 7 p.m. on November 20th. And then your men's will be on the road to the Bahamas to take on Stanford in the Battle for Atlantis tournament during Feast Week. So as we wrap up, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Go like and follow and subscribe to our YouTube page. And thank you again for listening to today's episode of Woo Pig Weekly, and we'll be right back here next week.